And a very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Issues and Attitudes. My name is Jeff Owens, General Manager at WEIU. Today we're talking all things Charleston. In studio we have Principal Aaron Locke. Welcome, Aaron.
Hey, thank you.
We're going to move you up to that mic a little bit. We have Charleston student Parker Pounds.
Thank you for having me.
He's a junior. And Angie Niebrugge. Welcome, Angie.
Welcome. Yeah, thank you. Thanks
You're
for
the
having me.
CTE specialist at Charleston. So
I am. I'm not sure how much of a specialist I am, but that's my title.
we are relying on you to be special today, okay? There you go.
Okay.
Let's start off with the CTE and the Career and Technical Education Department, being a CTE specialist, because when he sent the note that you were coming, I was thinking, what exactly is that? So could you go into a little bit of what you do for Charleston?
Sure. This is a new position. I spent 26 years as a business teacher, and then the last 2 years as CTE specialist. And CTE stands for Career and Technical Education. So this position was created to really get our internship and cooperative education programs up and rolling, increase enrollment in those opportunities for our students. And then also I help oversee our student-run business CHS Industries.
I know, Aaron, you want to talk a lot about CHS Industry, so talk about what that is and what the students, more importantly, are doing at Charleston High School.
Sure. So going back even to kind of what Angie's already touched on was like the why. We recognized as a district that there was opportunity to provide students with more opportunity, and that's been kind of the focus of everything that we've done so far. So to quantify it for you, we have our new wonderful A&M center that people can drive by and see that has a greenhouse attached to it. But back in 2017, we only had 97 students enrolled in classes out in that location. And fast forward to this past fall, we had 305 students taking classes within our new shop. So we've seen a huge desire from our students to be enrolled in that type of education, and we talk constantly that high school needs to be for you and not to you, and putting the why behind what we're doing, because often it's have to, and what we want to try to do, and what Angie and I and our team has worked on, is get to. So what do our students get to do? And then at the end of their high school experience, what did we actually want them to possess? What do we actually want them to look like? So this even goes back to prior to her position being created. We did a portrait of a graduate activity as to, hey, when a kid graduates Charleston High School, what does that look like? What do we want them to have? And very little of that conversation within that group that we developed was about memorizing dates or times or knowing things. It was more about application of skills and soft skills and being able to communicate, having a strong work ethic, and then being career focused and career driven. So a lot of the work that we do now is building off our career pathways, trying to get students interested in what they're going to do after high school, and using high school as the vehicle to get you where you want to go as opposed to the destination. And I have to be here, I have to do this. So CHS Industries is our student-based enterprises. So it's the umbrella company that oversees all of our other student subsidiaries. So for example, within our shop right now we're constructing portable buildings. But the students out in the shop aren't just getting the wood and putting it together. They're working with Mr. Williams on, okay, we're getting ready to do this project. Let's start researching what these buildings should cost. Let's start researching what the materials may cost, and then let's look at, will this be profitable? We're a not-for-profit and we're an educational institution first, but as we try to teach students business concepts and things of that nature, we definitely want them to be thinking about, is this worth my time? So if you're spending 20 hours on a project and you're making $20 on that project, $1 an hour is probably not something that you're going to want to pursue in the future. And then to market those sheds, for example, our high school marketing class will take the lead on marketing those sheds. And then to handle the accounting portion of that, our high school accounting class will handle the accounting. So rather than just getting an old accounting workbook saying that, Donnie had 4 debits and 3 credits and here's how much he has left, almost like a math problem, as opposed to, hey, this is how accounting actually works within the business world, using real numbers has been something that I think has been cool for that group as well.
Now, with the teachers, do they enjoy this with a change in kind of what their dynamics of teaching are?
Yeah, I believe not only, have our students enjoyed some of that, but our teachers have as well, because it's real, right? It's real things, and I think the best part of teaching is seeing students engaged. So when teachers see students engaged and students excited about what they're doing, then it's going to be far more rewarding for them to want to come to work every day and to want to provide those benefits and those opportunities for our kids. So that's been something that's been really, really cool. And then as far as our industry goes, it's not just things happening within the A&M Center. We do have of a student-run coffee shop.
I saw the brew, yeah.
That Trojan Brew that's open 3 days a week, and we started initially with what Angie and I call the soft launch. And it's amazing all the steps that it takes just to get something like that in place, and it was just coffee. And then now we've expanded it, and I'll let her speak to a little bit of that, to baked goods and things like that our FCS students, our culinary students, are creating. And then the pride that they take has been really cool, because I talked to a couple of our FCS teachers, and they, initially it was like, okay, we're slowly putting out products and taking some time, and our volume's not very high, and now it's like a well-oiled machine, and they're proud. I mean, our students have taken pride in the work they've done too, which has been really cool.
Now, do they have to work with the health department and everything to make it above board and all that?
Yeah, so and that was part of the initial process that took so much time, because when we started to get ready to do our soft launch, it was also COVID. And I don't know if you remember, that was something that happened within the last couple of years.
Yeah, a little bit,
but our health department was kind of busy at that time. So, I mean, that soft launch actually took longer than what we ever anticipated that it would, but they needed to know some specific things as far as our kitchen layout and square footage, and, where all of our stuff was, and we needed to make sure that we went through the proper channels. And then we soft launched it in our FCS room, because all that stuff kind of already existed. And then we moved to a permanent location, because it became kind of cumbersome every evening or every afternoon to have to take down and set up and take down and set up. So now it's in a permanent location, and then we had to go through that process again to be approved again in the new location.
Yep. So last year, I think we were only open for 7 days. It took the majority of the second semester to get the permit from the health department. So yeah, as Aaron had mentioned, last spring semester, we were setting up shop just a couple days, actually 7 days total before school, and had to set up everything in the morning, tear down, because there were classes that were going to be held in that space. But then with the new location, we had to go through the health permit all over again. And but it's been fine. We're up and running, and hopefully we won't have to go through that process again.
Go ahead.
No, go
No, I want to get Parker involved. When you hear your teachers and principal talk about the stuff going on, and I assume you're involved in that, get the student aspect of that.
From like the new A&M Center, it is amazing. Like our old ag building, like it was more. Sorry.
That's all right.
It was more cramped and not very well organized. It was kind of the rooms scattered around everywhere. With this new A&M Center that we have, the classrooms are much more opened. We have more room to have activities. I know because the construction and trades class that Mr. Locke talked about, the building of the sheds, we are able to have all of us working on the sheds at the exact same time. I guaranteed like 100% in the old building, we couldn't do that. There was no way. There was no room, no like ability to do anything with it. With the new space, it does come with like, it kind of looks empty, which to some of us it was different, but we found a way to fill it in, and there's projects going on everywhere. I know the second hour class in Mr. Williams' class, they're building bag boards. And there's tons of bag boards everywhere. They're stacked up piles, like at least 6 feet high of just bag boards that they're just building and producing over and over and over again. And then in the 6-hour Mech and Tech class in Mr. Oakley's room, we made cutting boards, and we plan to sell them, but I'm pretty sure majority of the students have already purchased them, because I know for a fact I am, because I love my cutting board. I spent the time on it. I at least want to take it home and enjoy it. But we used all the new tools that we got from it. He taught us how to go through and price it out, and how we could make profit off of it while it also like not losing money with it. We went through, and we had a cut list that we had to do for each board, so we'd make sure we got every single like measurement correctly, because Oakley always tells us measure twice, cut once. You can always take some wood off, you can't add back.
Yeah.
So it's like you have to work with it. And then with welding class, they just now got into welding, and I'm student service for that hour, and it's amazing being in there. We got welders, all these new ones that have already pre-settings with it, so each kid, they don't have to go through and dial it back and make sure it's all correct and everything. And then the greenhouse, I'm in there every once in a while. I don't have a class in there. I plan to take one next year, but it's amazing to be in there. It's awesome. We have finally all the plants planted. It's covered. It's so weird, because like you'll go outside and it'll be like 30 degrees, and you walk in there, it's like 78, and it's like oh, that's really strange. But it's because you always think about, and you always hear about how it's temperature regulated, and once you go in there, you realize really how much temperature regulated it is.
High school has changed a lot.
Yeah.
I want to stay with you, Parker, for a minute. What's your pathway? What's your kind of goal and end game? And when you graduate Charleston, what's kind of your future? Have you thought about it?
I got two options really. I plan to go into an apprenticeship with some sort of electrical company and go into a trades, either work substation or be a lineman. And then another thing I'm also kind of looking into is being an ag teacher, going to Lakeland for 2 years and then transferring over to the U of I for another 2 years to get my degree so I can become an ag teacher, because if I was to teach anything, it would be ag. Like when I was younger, if you asked me what I wanted to do, I would have told you like something stupid, like I wanted to go to the NFL. But like the more I've got older, I realized this is where I'm starting to go, and I don't have it 100% narrowed down, but I have a path I need to go on that I understand like what I plan to do.
With this, the Agricultural Manufacturing Center, the A&M, is it to where it's going to be, or will you continue to kind of adapt it and change as years go on, or is it kind of going to continue on the pathway it is?
Yeah, I'm both for sure. So one thing we did when we designed the space itself was we did leave it open, as Parker kind of mentioned. And one of the reasons we did that is because we think that we have a pretty good handle on what the industry needs may be today, as far as what type of workforce that we need to be kind of trying to help develop. But we also recognize that we may not be able to renovate that space again for 30 or 40 years. And industry needs may change 30 or 40 years from now. So we tried to keep the floor plan open enough that it gives us flexibility in the future to where if, hey, no longer is this something that we need to be teaching our kids, we need to be able to utilize the space in a different way. So keeping it open, I think, is important there. And right now we have 2 full-time teachers out there, Mr. Williams, who we've discussed, who's our CTE construction trades teacher, and then Mr. Oakley, who's our ag teacher. But next year we're actually adding Emlyn Walk as one of our teachers, and she's a Coles County native who's doing her student teaching right now as a 3rd teacher out in that space. And it's important because Parker mentioned something. He mentioned he's in a welding class as an intern, but he's not in the welding class, right? And he also spent some time in the greenhouse, but he's not in horticulture, but he might be next year. And I think that's been something that's really cool to see. It's become a magnet for students. And he may spend more time out there than what a lot of the other kiddos do, but there's a lot of students that gravitate toward that space and they want to be involved. So one thing that we've done is I've told teachers, get kids out of study hall. Like, fine if they're enrolled in study hall, have them be the time, that's where they check in, that's where their attendance is. But if they're not like wanting to be busy within that space and there's something fun that they can do within any one of these industries, go do it. So upstairs in the 300 wing right now, we do have Trojan Print Shop and Trojan Design Center. So we're printing t-shirts in-house and doing some poster printing and things like that. And our kids that go up there love getting out of study hall to go work in those spaces because it's fun, it's with your friends, it's interactive, and you're learning a skill and trying to do those hands-on experiences for our students. I think, again, removing those obstacles and doing more things has been really, really cool. And they're within the ag shop. Not only do we have our ag students and our manufacturing students working on things, but we do have an auto detailing business that exists out there as well. Our students that are in our functional life skills program, that would be students that would be looking at community type employment after graduation or developing some of those skills, and they're taking some great pride in the work that they do. So they not only help they're to detail cars. Right now they do one car a week. So a lot of times whenever we speak to people about all the things they're doing, they're like, well, how can I buy this, or what can I do next? And Parker mentioned it. So right now a lot of the products that we're creating, grandma owns them, okay, or mom and pop are going to buy them.
Pre-orders are good.
Right,
that's cash
yeah, so
money.
a lot of it's pre-sale. You hit the nail on the head, and we'll talk about here in a little bit what will be available to the public in the future. But we have like our Strikeout Cancer game coming up, and our students have taken the lead on designing those T-shirts, coming up with an order form that is really, really cool through our website, and then being able to produce those T-shirts. And they've done a few orders like that for some things. One thing that I think is important to know, like, we're not out to compete at all with local business. We'll never be able to put out the volume that some of our other local businesses do to actually compete. But what we want to do is we recognize that there is a huge need out there for people with employable skills in not jobs, but careers. And I love what he said a little bit ago, like, I have 2 plans. Tell students all the time, you don't have to know exactly what you want to do, but you need to have an idea. A goal, and it's cool if that goal changes, because it's way easier to change your goal in high school than it is after high school and college or once you've gotten employed. And I challenge students often, like, hey, your focus is here and now, but you're going to have way more working years beyond high school than you do the 2 to 3 years that you have, remaining here. So I think that's something that's important to note too, that we recognize that within not only Coles County, but the surrounding counties and everywhere, there's a labor shortage, especially a skilled labor shortage. And I think that those careers are careers that could be extremely lucrative, moving forward. And then also, sometimes you will need industry recognized credentials to be in those, or go to a trade school or an apprenticeship program. So trying to steer our students into those pathways, but still make them pathways and not prerequisites. Because one thing that could happen is, let's say him, for example, he gets into high school and he's like, I want to be a lineman, I want to be a lineman. Gets to a senior year and is like, I want nothing to do with that because of an experience I had. We don't want them to have to start back at ground zero, but we want them to be able to move laterally across the pathway as opposed to starting back at the beginning, because we don't ever want to box our students into just one opportunity.
Can you talk, Angie, a little bit more about some of the other advantages and of the CTE program, and kind of maybe what Aaron said, where you're moving next in terms of future products down the line?
Sure. I did want to touch upon the students who are involved in all of the subsidiaries. We've mentioned the Trojan Design Center. We also have the print shop, our coffee shop. But all those students that work in those areas are part of our new entrepreneurship class. And Mackenzie Snoddy is our teacher currently for that class, and she has a large number, and so she's broken them up into small groups based on interest. And so with our block schedule, she only has those students one class period every other day. And so that's where pulling in these students that are sitting in study hall or who may be in some of our other classes and they see what's going on, they really do gravitate towards these businesses that we have going on. So we have a lot of students who are in my room and her room nearly every day with working hands-on, pressing T-shirts or trying to figure out the new equipment. We didn't have the print shop or the Trojan Design Center up and running last year. It was we had a little bit with our Trojan Brew, but this year we're kind of up and running with the T-shirt design business, but the printing is something that we're still working on. Just a lot of technology involved, and it's all student run, so the students are the ones figuring out the technology and how to run the equipment and then teaching us.
That's awesome.
So,
what about the future, where you said you hinted about future products, so where do you go next?
Yeah, I think that we're definitely figuring out what we are good at and then what we need to expand upon. So one of the biggest things in the future is going to be our greenhouse. It did not exist, and now it exists. So right now it's full of plants. And speaking with Mr. Oakley this morning, whenever we were talking to a group that did a tour out there, when we filled the greenhouse with plants, and again, I want to touch on what Angie said, it's the students. So Mr. Oakley just didn't order a bunch of plants. He asked the students, which plants should we order and why? So having them do the actual market research as to what plants may sell within our area, and then what plants actually make sense to grow within the zone that we're in, and then why we would want to grow them in a spring plant sale as opposed to a fall plant sale, that's something to where the sky's kind of the limit in terms of how much we can put out there. He also had them calculate, so there's math involved, how many plants can we fit? Right? This is our first rodeo out here with putting out plants. How many plants can we fit? And they did a really good job because of all the racking out there. There's only one very small portion of one rack that's not filled. And then the hanging baskets and things like that. So I think that is huge. But you ask where the future holds, and I can tell you what one of my goals is to get more kids in our internships. So it's not necessarily about, hey, let's continue to build our own enterprises and our own student-based enterprises. Like, that's the foundation, that's the bottom. But I know you have some interns that even work here within the studio. My goal is to get kids out of the building, and if they're in the building for the freshman year, getting that foundation level. So, for example, out in the shop with ag, the intro classes, the intro to ag and intro to tech, which is one class. This year it was two classes, two separate classes. But we recognize there's a lot of redundancy within those two classes, and we made it one class. But our students get an OSHA 10 certification at the end of that, and then getting some welding certifications and things like that. But the future is getting them plugged into careers within high school in those internship opportunities. And Angie mentioned our block schedule, and for anybody that's not familiar with that, we actually have 4 classes one day, and then the next day we have 4 different classes, and the next day we go back to the classes that were 2 days prior. And it's been a true A-B snaking block no matter what day of the week it falls on. We have tweaked that a little bit for next year. So next year, every Monday and Wednesday will be a Scarlet Day, and every Tuesday and Thursday will be a Gold Day, and then Friday will be a Check and Connect day where all kids go to all classes, no matter if we have an early dismissal or not. We did that this year for early outs, and I think that was something that benefited teachers and students, because one thing that would be a potential negative would be long gaps not seeing your kids.
Yeah.
But why the 4 80-minute periods work so well, especially in a hands-on class, is by the time you get tools out in a 40-minute class, it's time to put tools away. So this way they can really get dug into the activity. And then right now, all of our interns, for the most part, other than a couple we've allowed, do half days. And next year, they have the opportunity to do full-day internships. So a company like a VAPCO, for example, they've said, hey, we want to partner with you. We want to have students come out and be interns. It's hard for us in a half day to send students that far.
Yeah.
But now if we can say, hey, you can have them every Monday and Wednesday as long as that works in their schedule and it works in your schedule, we think that those community partnerships are going to be able to be expanded upon just because the consistency in which we can provide students as interns.
Parker, when you hear your principal and Angie talk about all the innovation and going on, it's got to make you proud to be a part of Charleston High School and the growth, I assume.
Yeah, definitely. Like, we have come especially a long way with the internships and everything, and the learning and the ability with the A&M Center. Because when Mr. Locke brought up the 80-minute class periods, especially with the trade classes, I remember my freshman year when I took intro, it was nearly impossible to build. We were building birdhouses, and by the time we'd get out there and get all the tools out, maybe 15 minutes to build a birdhouse. Now we sit there and with my cutting board, I was in there. I'm like, I definitely have to be close to over. I got another 40 minutes left, and I'm like, well, what do I do with all this extra time now? But it definitely, I do know with the block scheduling at the beginning, it was hard for like the teachers to like, okay, what do we cram in here with this? Because it's 80 minutes. You don't really like when you're sitting there. It's like I got to teach for 80 minutes, or have them do study time with it. Definitely in the ag class, we definitely struggled with that at first. It was like, we got a lot of time here. Now I would say now we are 100%. We are always efficient. We are always working. Oakley has every single person doing something. I do know when some kids were still slow behind with their cutting boards, he had us sweeping. We're doing something. He had me like a group of us and me out in the shed that we have, because we wanted to make that more like more of a space we can like use.
Yeah.
And it's all crammed in there. And he had us working out there building shelves and stuff and reorganizing things so we can use it. He had some kids sweeping and cleaning. He had some kids in the welding shop organizing. Like every 80 minutes we get with the days, he's always having us do something. I know with some of my teachers, we're always doing that. With my English class, we get 10 minutes to read, and then we talk for about 30 minutes, and we go through any late work that we have. She gives us time to do it, and we're always doing something. They're always having us working with the 80-minute classes, and especially in the ag building, it has definitely it's more enjoyable now with more time that we have to work with it.
Interesting. Can I ask you both, how did you get started in education? What kind of led you to the pathway?
Sure, yeah. For me, it was primarily coaching was the initial draw. So I went to Lakeland, went to EIU, and while I was in undergrad at EIU, I actually had the opportunity to coach freshman and sophomore boys basketball at Altamont High School my first year at EIU, and then my second year was the JV boys basketball coach. When I started at Lakeland, I didn't know if I wanted to go into exercise physiology or if I wanted to go into teaching health and PE, but then I really loved my coaching experience and loved working with students and student athletes at that time, and that's something that was a big passion for me. And I taught down in Salem for 6 years and coached 3 sports year round, and then taught in Altamont for 2 years and coached 3 sports year round, and then have been here in the Charleston district now for 6 years, and started at the elementary level at Ashmore as the principal, and then the assistant principal athletic director at the middle school, and then the Carl Sandburg elementary principal for a couple years, and then this is my 3rd year at Charleston High School, and I've loved it. I really have, and I feel very grateful and thankful that we've been able to provide the opportunities that we can, because sometimes even if the desire is there, there's barriers, right?
Yeah.
And our community has supported our endeavors and our efforts, and our school community has supported these efforts, not only with, hey, yes, let's do these things, let's take risks, let's shake shake it up a little bit, because as Parker mentioned, it hasn't been all sunshine and rainbows all the time, right? I mean, people probably have thought at times I'm crazy, right? Like because there's so much change that has happened in such a small amount of time. But COVID changed everything anyway. So the setting conditions, while they weren't optimal, they were, because we had to reinvent a lot of the things that we're doing. So when we reset, let's do it right. Let's do some things that we've always wanted to do. So it's just been really cool and really neat, and I appreciate, like I said, the community partnerships. We wouldn't have the greenhouse if it wasn't for the Charleston Charitable Trust. That was part of that addition, and some of the 1% sales tax revenue that we've been able to do. I joked with a group recently, I probably have been allowed to spend more money than anyone in the history of Charleston High School. I mean, as far as, not me spending the money, but just the projects, because it hasn't just been A&M Center. I mean, we redid the auditorium, we redid the band and chorus rooms, the parking lots, and the science labs a couple years before I got there, and now we're looking at another large renovation. So the facilities improvements have been amazing, and that has a profound impact on the learning environment. When kids take pride, and you can hear it whenever he speaks, like how much it means to him, and it's not just him, that's going to lead to more things for our students.
And the tennis courts, right, Parker?
Yes,
Right,
and the tennis courts. I am looking forward
And
to
they're
that.
red. Yeah.
They are red.
Angie, what led you to be a teacher?
I was adamant that I was not going into education. My mother and stepfather were both in education, and I was going to be an accountant. But I'm from Mattoon. One of my favorites, I guess I should say, business teacher, Phyllis Milam. She was the one that actually got me to change my mind. I was always helping family members with computer problems, and I thought, okay, I like the business side of things. I decided to give it a try, and it was still related to accounting.
Yep.
My favorite class to teach when I first started at Charleston High School was accounting, and I got to teach that for 26 years. I started my career at Charleston High School, and I was hired by the legendary Dean Tucker many years ago, and I've been there ever since, and I love it.
I had Phyllis Milam for accounting way back when too, so the small world. We have just a little bit and a half left. Anything else, Aaron, for sure, from your point of view, or anybody that we want to touch on before we wrap up today that's going on at Charleston High School?
Yeah, I mean, you talked about the future, and I think that this year, we were 2.0, and the next year will be 3.0, because I'm looking forward to not having to do as much big, broad wholesale change as far as the schedule and things like that. But I think that the momentum that we have to sustain, because there are still so many things that we can do, and I want to speak to the fact that it is the program, but it's the people. And Angie mentioned a couple of the people on our team, but our CTE team has done an amazing job. And she mentioned a teacher that had an impact on her, and the coolest thing that I'm seeing is how much of an impact that our teachers have on our students. So just a big kudos to them for all the hard work that they do, because kids were wanting to take classes in the ag shop, and our numbers were increasing significantly before they ever knew renovation was going to take place. And I'm confident that's because of the relationship that teacher out there has built with those students. And you heard him mention a little bit ago, the one thing he's thinking about doing instead is being an ag teacher.
There you go. Well, we're out of time. We have plenty more that we could get to. I apologize for that. So thank you, Parker. Thank you, Principal Locke, and Angie. Good seeing you again. I appreciate you coming in today and telling us all things happening at Charleston. And if anybody wants to contact you, it's easy to go to the school district, and I'm sure names and numbers are all there. Again, everybody have a great day.
All right.
WEIU.